Experiential training program pathways. There are 3 ways to complete the experiential training program. Number 1, articling. Number 2, the law practice program in English, and the Programme de pratique de droit in French, or the integrated practice curriculum. Candidates entering the licensing process following graduation from an integrated practice curriculum law faculty are exempted from articling and the LPP. This exemption is granted as the Law Society's practical competencies are included in the academic and practice curriculum of certain law faculties. In this section, we're focusing on the articling pathway. Candidates are expected to secure their own articling placement to complete the experiential training component. Detailed information on recruitment activities and guidelines, as well as other resources, are available online under the Experiential Training tab. There are many different arrangements and practice settings that can support an articling placement. In addition to the traditional full-time articling placement in Ontario, the Law Society also permits, in appropriate circumstances, joint articling placements with 2 or more principals, or part-time articling placements, as well as national and international articling placements. We would encourage you to consult the website if you are considering any of these alternative options, as they sometimes have additional requirements and applications. If you are entering the licensing process and are still seeking an articling placement, we have resources available to assist you. These include a registry of articling placement job postings and a mentorship program that matches unplaced candidates with a practicing lawyer who provides guidance and support to candidates in their search process. You also have the option of completing a biographical paragraph about yourself for potential lawyers to review. During an articling placement, you are permitted to take up to 8 business days off without it affecting the length of your placement. This time can be used for vacation, study, or sick days. If you're away from your articling placement for more than 8 days, you will generally need to extend your articling term. In some cases, such as significant illness or emergency, you may qualify for a compassionate abridgment of the articling term itself. If you have experienced a significant illness or emergency, please contact the Licensing and Accreditation Department so that we can guide you through that process. If you decide to write the licensing examinations during your articling placement, your principal must give you 7 days free of articling duties for each of the licensing exams. Please note that this obligation only applies if it is your first attempt at each exam, and that any study days you take count towards the total 8 days off to which you are entitled. While all articling placements must align with the experiential training competencies, there is flexibility within the program itself. Filing requirements. We will now touch on the key filing requirements of the articling program. All the documents mentioned here are available for download on the website under the Fees and Forms section. First, note that before the articling placement even begins, your articling principal must be approved by the Law Society to serve as a principal. This is not a requirement for you as a candidate, but it's important that you be aware of this requirement, because if your proposed principal is not already an approved principal, your placement start date could be delayed. And if your principal does not become approved, you would have to secure another placement. We aren't able to credit time that you spend working for a lawyer who has not been approved as an articling principal. If the lawyer is going to act as your principal and has not had an articling student before, it's important that you remind the lawyer to file the principal application well in advance of the placement commencing. The first filing requirement for you as a candidate is at the beginning of your placement, specifically within 10 business days after your articling placement starts. You must file an Articles of Clerkship form signed by both you and your principal to avoid any late fees and to make sure you get full credit for the time you work in your placement. At the same time, your principal must file an experiential training plan for the placement using the online articling program reporting tool for principals. If your principal has already filed a training plan in previous years, they will just need to log on, review it, and make sure that it's up to date and that the practice can still support the training plan. We also recommend reviewing the experiential training plan with your principal periodically throughout your placement. It's important that before and during your placement, you check your online account often, since that is the primary way the Law Society will communicate important articling and licensing information to you. It's also important that you notify us of any changes in your placement or your personal information as soon as possible. Your online account is the best way to get in touch with the Law Society about anything related to the licensing process. At the end of your placement, you must file a form called the Certificate of Service under Articles. Your principal also signs this form, and it's required for you to become eligible to be called to the bar. Also, at the end of your placement, you are required to file the Record of Experiential Training, or RET, using your online licensing account. Your principal is also required to file the RET at the end of the placement. Please note that these are separate requirements and should be completed independently. For your RET, you will be asked to report on your experiences during the articling placement as it relates to the experiential training competencies. It's a good idea during your placement to review a sample copy of the RET, which is available online, to understand the reporting requirements right at the outset. So to recap, there are 3 key documents that you as a candidate will be responsible for filing. Number 1, the articles of clerkship, which must be filed at the beginning of your placement. Number 2, the certificate of service under articles form, which must be filed at the end of your placement. And number 3, the online record of experiential training, which must be filed at the end of your placement as well. Rights of appearance. Some candidates have questions about their rights of appearance while articling or in the LPP or PPD. The Law Society governs who may provide legal services and the scope of those legal services. It's important that you understand what you are permitted to do as an articling candidate or a candidate who's completing a work placement term in the LPP. During articling or a work placement, you may appear on certain matters before courts and tribunals. Before you make any appearance on any matter, the first step you should take is to consult the Rights of Appearance page on our website, which provides a detailed list of the types of matters you can appear on. In addition to ensuring that your matter falls within that list, you and your principal or supervising lawyer must ensure that the lawyer's attendance is not necessary, that you are adequately supervised and properly prepared, and that the matter is appropriate for your level of training, experience, and ability. Please note that Ontario courts and tribunals are entitled to control their own processes. So, although the Rights of Appearance page sets out certain matters on which the Law Society permits candidates to appear, it is always advisable to consult any applicable enabling legislation, rules of practice, rules of procedure, and practice directions. You should also consult the court or tribunal in advance whenever possible to obtain express permission to make an appearance. After you've read the web page, if you still have questions about your rights of appearance, or you would like some clarification, feel free to contact the Licensing and Accreditation Department. When you do make an appearance, you are also obligated to identify yourself as an articling student or LPP work placement candidate. You may also use the term student at law. If you've completed your articling placement or the LPP and would like to continue to provide legal services, including making court appearances before you're called to the bar, you can do so by filing a supervision agreement. If you've completed your articling placement or the LPP and would like to continue to provide those legal services before you're called, including making court appearances, you can do so by filing this supervision agreement. The supervision agreement needs to be signed by a lawyer who will be directly responsible for supervising any work you do and appearances you make until you are called to the bar. You may find a copy of the supervision agreement form on the website. If you have any questions, please contact the Licensing and Accreditation Department's Experiential Training staff.